everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. That is Nick Wright. It is a Friday morning. We have a big weekend of games to look forward to. Here are the moving parts. Here's how it's going to look. Eagles are trying to make another miracle playoff run. Vikings get in with a win, in Pittsburgh, well, they find themselves in unfamiliar territory heading into Week 17. That's where we will begin today's show. It has been a mostly rocky season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Contract holdouts, quarterback finger pointing, some sloppy play.
What?
Did I not say the Hall of Famer Cris Carter? Did I skip it?
I think you didn't introduce either one of us, but it's great to see you.
Did I just forget about all of that?
Right. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Well, that's how you start a Friday show. Despite all the things I just laid out for the Steelers this past season, they still have a chance to make it to the postseason. Here's how it'll look. If Pittsburgh beats the Bengals at home on Sunday and the Browns beat the Ravens, or less likely the Colts and Titans tie, Steelers, who have lost 4 of their last 5, are in. Hall of Famer Cris Carter, who is also an anchor on this show every single day from the very beginning. How much does this season's story for the Steelers change if they do indeed make the playoffs?
It doesn't change unless they make a significant run in the playoffs. They have the type of talent that they should be in the playoffs. They shouldn't be battling with Baltimore, excuse me, week number 17, and waiting for something for the Cleveland Browns to happen. I mean, that's the story of Pittsburgh season. 17 weeks. Ben Roethlisberger's been healthy the whole season. Oh, and you got to get some help to get into the playoffs. So it's hard to really turn that around and to make it a successful season. Given the organizational, what they go for every year, I know that they're underachieving based on, forget what I say, I know what they're saying internally. They're not achieving the goals or the potential of the type of talent that they have in that locker room.
I'm glad you said what you said at the very beginning, which is barring a substantial run. Like, they need some help to get in, but if they get in and they do something they weren't able to do last year, which is they couldn't win one playoff game last year. They'd have to win a couple. They'd have to get to the AFC Championship game, maybe go through New England on the way there. If all those things happen, then all of this year could be looked at as better than the 13-3 year from last season. But
that's a bunch of ifs.
It's a bunch of
the holidays
ifs
and everything. Like if we're really relying on that, or are we just going to go on the recent history that they're going to continue to underperform?
Well, and I would say more importantly, one of those ifs they do not control. They have no impact on whether or not the Browns beat the Ravens. So even if all those things happen, it would have been because they got lucky. Because in Week 17, they do not control their own destiny to get into the playoffs. The Steelers should not be in that position as long as Mike Tomlin's there, as long as Big Ben's been healthy. AB's had an excellent year. Juju, I believe, leads the AFC in receptions and is second in yards. Like, all of those things, yes, they don't have Le'Veon Bell, and we are seeing the impact of that. But that and that alone cannot be an excuse or a justification as to why, at the end of the season, they were 7-2-1, see? They controlled everything they wanted to control, and they blew 3 straight games. I don't think it's too harsh to say they blew 3 straight games, that they could have won any or all of those 3 to put themselves in this position.
Another story came out of Pittsburgh yesterday I just thought was intriguing.
Team MVP?
That Juju Schuster, as a wide receiver, was named team MVP over Ben Roethlisberger. And if you look at the type of season Ben had, him or James Conner, they should have been the MVP of the team. So to me, it's just another little thing about Pittsburgh. There's always something a little off. There's always like an inside story. There's always something going on. As Mangini calls them, they're the dysfunctional family. Like we all know, they just have their different sets of dysfunction.
A little context on that team MVP. It's voted on by the players. Ben Roethlisberger in his 15th year has won it once. He won it in 2009. Going into this year, AB had won it 4 times already. Juju won it this year, maybe because they were sick of giving it to Antonio Brown. And by the way, Juju did have an excellent year 2, building on that year 1. But that also, to me, speaks to a lot of the things we talk about Ben Roethlisberger as far as being a great player, but not the greatest of teammates. For the last decade, his teammates have had an opportunity to give the best and most important player on the team. Ben Roethlisberger leads the NFL in passing yards. He might throw for 1,000 yards this year. He's obviously been the most valuable player on the team, and Juju gets team MVP voted on by his teammates.
One thing we should mention ahead of this Sunday's game, James Conner did practice on Wednesday, so that'll be a nice addition if they're able to get him back. But let's talk about one of those scenarios, because, yes, they have to beat the Bengals. They also have to sit and hope their arch rivals, the Browns, beat the Ravens. How is it possible for this Browns team, the way they've been playing, to pull off an upset against a team like the Ravens who've been playing as well as just about any other?
Well, since they made a change at head coach, there's a couple of significant things happen as far as the offense. And that's their ability to be able to take care of Baker Mayfield and also provide him with some type of running game. So those are the things. When they changed this franchise, decided, oh, Hugh is not the answer, we're going to go with an interim. What they have done is run the football and take care of Baker. If Baker can get time to be able to throw the ball down the field. Now, Baltimore, to me, they have the best defense because they have the most consistent between. Even though outside Terrell Suggs, you don't know a lot of the guys that they have in that front seven, they have a number of quality young players. But their defensive line play, linebacker play, and their secondary coverage, I believe, makes them the best defense in the league. So it's going to take some time for Baker to try to dissect that defense. They switch it up, a lot of man coverage. Eric Weddle, the safety, you have to watch him because he disguises a tremendous amount of coverages, helps fool a lot of quarterbacks. Last week against the Chargers, I think of the lowest yardage production by Phillip Rivers the last 2 seasons. So very, very tough challenge for Baker Mayfield, but they got to give him a chance, got to keep him up, keep his jersey clean.
The Ravens should win, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if the Browns were to win this game. The Browns, the last half of the season, have been a good football team. They have played like a playoff team the last half of the season, and because of the Ravens' style, they're not going to be blowing teams out. Like, these are going to be close games, and in close games, Week 17, like, it takes one tipped pass going the other way, and all of a sudden, the Browns have a lead late. Like, I do expect the Ravens to take care of business and be a very dangerous AFC playoff team.
And they have something to play for.
Well, they have everything to play for.
Right.
I mean, you can't anticipate that the Steelers are going to lose this week, and not to Jeff Driscoll and the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, you have to bake in that the Steelers should win that football game. So for the Ravens, this is a playoff game, essentially. So I expect them to win, but I wouldn't be shocked if they lost. This wouldn't be like if the Raiders upset the Chiefs and keep the Chiefs from getting the 1 seed, or if the Rams lose and they all fall to the 3 line, like this to the Niners. This wouldn't be a shocking result. The Browns have played very well as of late, and any game involving the Ravens, you know that if you can do a competent job against the run, if you can force them into passing situations, they're going to struggle. So I do think it's in play that the Steelers get into the playoffs, but that won't make winning the division for the Steelers at 9-6-1 doesn't make it a successful season. Like, the only way this can be a successful season is if they then go upset a couple teams in the playoffs.
But even if they were able to make a significant run, you still go back to where was this team?
The systemic issues.
You know, like, I mean, so to me, they've been very, very consistent. That they're inconsistent and they're going to underperform for where their potential level is. It's too good of an organization. The quarterback is too good. They got quality players. They got to get their defense fixed, though, because it's been a long time since I remember where the Pittsburgh Steelers didn't have any type of bite in that steel curtain. It's like a steel sheet.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, let's talk some Eagles. Do the Eagles have another miracle playoff run left in the tank? That's next. This is First Things First. We will get to Nick Foles and the Eagles in a second, but first, Lakers-Kings from last night. Darren Fox with the quick move toward the basket before slamming this one home.
What a spectacular second season this kid's having.
Ooh.
He was a star at Kentucky. He was a star in high school. Struggled a bit his rookie year. Has been the best player on a very good Kings team.
Yeah, good matchup last night, him and Lonzo. It was a good back-and-forth battle between the two of them.
You remember them from college, and the tournament went back and forth famously.
Oh, yeah. UCLA versus Big Blue.
Celtics-Rockets, that was Kyrie driving, then hitting Clint Capella with a filthy behind-the-back move. Finishes with the little floater.
There was a sequence in this game where Kyrie and Harden were just going back and forth against each other up and down the court. It was very fun to watch. Kyrie was not quite as good as on Christmas Day, but very good once again.
Blazers-Warriors, Draymond Green with an aggressive pass to Klay Thompson.
Yeah, I mean, right off his noggin.
Part of what the Warriors' problem was late in the game, not only this turnover, but Steph. Steph had the ball with the 2-point lead, turns the ball over. When the Warriors are susceptible to the rest of the NBA is when they make careless turnovers on the offensive end.
This was a play in NBA Street, but you did it to your opponent. Throw it right off his head, right back to you.
And then because you're a guy, you can't rub your head to make it feel better because you have to act like it really didn't hurt. I felt bad.
No, that hurt right there.
Texas Bowl, Baylor, Vanderbilt. Baylor's Denzel Mims can't make the catch in the end zone, but Vandy's Randall Haney can, securing the interception.
Oh, yeah, watch it. It hits off his knees, going to pop right up to the defender. Now, this is one of the few times I can't say this, Nick. You say he does the Michael Jackson in the end zone?
Keeps his heels up.
He's a defender. But you see where he went to school, where he's going to school at, right?
Yeah.
Vandy, so you know he's a fairly smart guy.
Oh, okay. So at Vandy, because it's such a good academic school, even the defenders are smart.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Particularly in that school, yeah. He's not there to try to boost or lower the GPA.
I got you.
They're all outstanding students.
Okay, good to know. A little nuance there.
That was not so much nuance. Moving on to the Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champs will be happy to just make the playoffs this year. Philly needs a win Sunday in Washington and a Bears win over the Vikings in Minnesota. And if we learned anything from last season's Eagles team with Nick Foles as quarterback, anything is possible. Nick Foles is starting Sunday. He's won his last 2 games, just saying. Here's Foles on what it's going to take to get a win.
The thing that's going to win is like the brotherhood, being able to fight through adversity, because I always say it will happen. There will be mistakes made. I might throw a pick. I might fumble. But what are we going to do? Like, that's where we need to react and be confident and be positive, as opposed to, oh, man, like we're in trouble. And that's what you see with this team, you know. Happened last game. There was a lot of missed assignments. There was a couple turnovers. We didn't play our cleanest ball. But we played well. We played at a high speed because we weren't afraid of making mistakes, and we were playing for one another. Defense was playing for offense. Offense was playing for defense. Special teams holds it all together. I mean, that's how we play. That's how we win. It's not going to be perfect, and I think we showed that last Sunday playing against a really good Texans team. It takes 60 minutes and it takes everyone, but if you have that brotherhood and you know how to fight through adversity, you can win any game. Nick
Foles is a great soundbite. There are very few press conferences where you walk away saying, "Oh, I don't really catch on to what he was saying." He knows how to rally this team. But do the Eagles really have a shot? Can they win this game this weekend?
I think for television, and people want to see a great story. Last year, it was a great story, but we forgot some of the parts about it. They were the best team in the NFC. They had home field advantage. They didn't play a great game in the game against Atlanta, and they got out of that game barely. And then that's when they played 8 great quarters of football. That started against Minnesota and continued on to the Super Bowl. So where they are now compared to where they were then, every unit last year had confidence because they were the best. And they got the bye week. So now we have to bake a lot of things into, oh, can they do this again? It's totally different. Now, I believe that there's 3 superior teams in the NFC, that being New Orleans, the Rams, and I believe the Chicago Bears. Are they legitimate? Do I believe that they can make it into that divisional round? No, I don't think so, because they're going to have to go on the road. No, and I know right now they're playing better football, but ultimately you're in the position you're in with the Eagles for a reason. They've been on the field 15 times. 7 times they've come off a loser. So it's not some magic button you can push. As you can see in the last couple games, those games could have gone either way. So legitimate to me is winning in the divisional round. Can they go on the road and be able to beat one of those teams? And I don't think that to me is legitimate, and I don't think the Eagles are legitimate.
So, but you think they could theoretically win that first round game against the Bears?
Well, all those teams are equal. You got the Vikings, Seahawks, Cowboys, and all those teams to me are lumped into one basket.
No, agree. But if the Eagles, if they get in, you ask, can they win? You don't mean this weekend.
No,
you
I mean if they get into the playoffs.
Because I think most of us expect them to beat Josh Johnson in Washington this weekend. And if they get in, they would be playing Chicago. They'd be playing Chicago in that opening round because they're the 6th seed. It'd be either be playing Chicago or technically they could play the Rams. Could they beat Chicago? I think Chicago's second best team in the NFC right now. If you tell me the Saints aren't going to make the Super Bowl, pick a team from the NFC, Chicago would be my pick. I think Chicago's excellent. I think it's going to be hard for any team to go into Soldier Field and beat that defense. But I also don't know what that offense is going to look like in its first playoff game. I don't know what Mitch Trubisky is going to look like in his first playoff game. So do I think it's possible that the Eagles, if they win 3 in a row, which is what they would have had to do to get in that position, could get pressure on Mitch Trubisky, could keep this to low scoring, a 13-10 game late? Absolutely. So do I think they could? To me, success would be a legitimate threat, would be just getting to the divisional round, being the 6th seed, upsetting the Bears, and they would have to go to New Orleans. Can I see a realistic path for this Philly team to then go after, if they were first they got to beat Chicago and then go to New Orleans? No, I don't think they're going to do that. Yesterday, the premise of what the Foles versus Wentz thing was assuming things that nobody thinks are going to happen, which is that they win 3 consecutive road playoff games. It's going to be hard for them to win 1 road playoff game, much less the 3 they would need to get to the Super Bowl. Their path is, because they're not the 1 seed, they don't have a bye, and they don't have home field. Their path is going to be as hard of a path as you can get. And by the way, there was a brief time in the late 2000 aughts, I guess, where wildcard teams made the Super Bowl a bunch. The last wildcard team to make a Super Bowl was the Packers championship team with Aaron Rodgers in 2010. So it's been a long time since a team has taken the path the Eagles would have to take to the Super Bowl. Obviously, we've seen some wildcard teams upset some teams, but I don't think they can go to the Bears and then to the Saints and win both those games.
Take Nick Foles out of it. How much better was last year's Eagles team heading into Week 17 than this year's Eagles team?
Significantly better. Significantly better as far as the confidence we had in the 7-man rotation, the amount of time or lack of time you were going to have to throw the football. Their offensive line, Jason Peters, their best offensive lineman, out. Man, that offensive line unit was tremendous. They were dominant. They played with an edge, and they gave the quarterback, Nick Foles, plenty of time to be able to throw. I thought from a game planning standpoint, you have to realize John DeFilippo, Frank Wright, and Duckby, all these guys in one brain trust. Yep. So they had a number of things. Their secondary, they had career years in their secondary. So all across the board, they were playing significantly better football than the other teams in the NFC, and they are a significantly better football team than the team that's going onto the field on Sunday.
And even if they were the exact same at every other level, let's say that all of a sudden this Eagles team is going to recapture the pass rush. The secondary is not going to be abysmal. They're going to get more of a running game. Even if all that happened, I don't think last year's team makes the Super Bowl with the path that this year's team has to take. Like, if they are, instead of being at home against Atlanta, they're on the road in a game like that. I know that they ended up blowing out the Vikings in the NFC Championship game we were at, but see, that crowd carried them early. When it looked like the Vikings scored a touchdown to go up 7, were driving again, and then a Case Keenum pick 6, and the stadium erupted, and they seemed to ride that wave the rest of the game. So even if this team can recapture its pass rush, secondary can play better, all those things, the path is so much more difficult this year.
And the point I was making was, it's not just the quarterback. It's not just, oh, Nick Foles is there, it's going to happen again. This is a significantly different team, for the most part, talent-wise, than you had last year.
It's significant. It's different in how they attack people. It's different how they have responded. But the truth of the matter is, Nick talked about Mitch Trubisky and the Chicago offense. You don't know if the Philadelphia gets into the offense. You don't know which Nick Foles is going to show up to the game. No, so you don't know which Nick Foles is going to show up at Washington. Now, they are so much better than Washington as far from all across the board. They should win that game. But the first game of the playoff, anyone who says, I know how Nick Foles is going to play, is flat lying. So if Carson Wentz was in there and the team was trending up, I would have far more confidence because the quarterback play would be far more predictable of what's going to happen.
All right, time now for Nick's Fantasy Update, sponsored by DraftKings. DraftKings is the leader in one-week fantasy football, and this weekend, it's your last chance to get in on the action during the regular season. This Sunday, DraftKings has a $1 million NFL contest that you can play for free. There's still time to play. Download the DraftKings app today, and don't forget to use the promo code FS1 to play free for your share of $1 million. DraftKings, the game inside the game. All right, Nick, who is your sleeper pick for this Sunday's contest?
All right, so sleeper pick means someone you can get relatively cheaply, you think is going to produce. I'm going to go with a guy who just got a new contract, a guy who I think is going to be used a ton this weekend. That's Kansas City Chiefs running back Damian Williams. He had 100 yards rushing last week, and the week before he had over 100 yards from scrimmage. He was a pending free agent. This gave him 2 years, $8 million. I think they're going to use him a ton to try to keep Pat Mahomes as limited vulnerability as possible in this game. He's only $5,100 DraftKings dollars turnovers against a terrible Raiders defense. So Damian Williams, I think, is good value if you're going to play in that Week $17 million
Also
contest.
a 3-down threat. He can play out a backfield, 3rd down, look for him to get some receptions to be able to add to his overall value.
Damian Williams it is. All right, got to take a break. Coming up, can Kirk Cousins carry the Vikings into the playoffs? That's next on First Things First. Big East Conference play gets underway tomorrow on FS1 as Xavier tips off against DePaul at 2 Eastern. You can catch all the action on FS1 and the Fox Sports app. It's about that time for us to go viral. Ben Simmons has received a lot of criticism this season for not improving his jump shot over the summer. Well, he's taken over 400 field goal attempts this season. None have been a three-pointer. But maybe we'll see one soon. Here he is working on his corner three before last night's game.
The shot he made on Christmas against at the buzzer was the longest made field goal attempt of his career, according to the folks that track that type of thing, 22 feet. The only threes he took last year were end of quarter, took a few of them at the end of a quarter just because he had no choice. I think it would help them if he just shot them. Even if he, it has helped Milwaukee's offense that Giannis is shooting threes, even though Giannis is shooting 13% from three, not just giving him confidence. Because if you know the opponent's going to shoot, even if you don't expect him to make it, it's hard to not put a guy out there. It's hard to give guys the Draymond treatment like he's been getting all year long. So I would like to see him shoot one of these in a game.
The only thing with you trying to put him on Giannis's program was Giannis has been shooting 10 to 15 more feet further than him long time ago.
So agreed. I'm not even saying if he shot threes. I'm saying if he just shot 12
This is the
footers.
thing. If you can't make threes, you shouldn't take threes. All right? Because leaving you open is humiliating. We know how good Draymond is. We see what's happening with Draymond. We cannot allow a guy just to shoot threes to think it's going to open the court because he's not going to make any, and it's not going to open the court. So think about that one again. Come back with a different concept.
I think you actually agree with me that if he would take, if he would take a few mid-range jump shots.
No, I don't agree with you.
How about if he does this in a closed gym so people don't have to see all the shots he's making? That's what Giannis did, right? Spent the whole offseason just shooting and shooting and shooting.
Yeah, well,
that's what basketball players do.
Right.
That's the only responsibility that they do have. Don't get arrested and learn how to shoot
the ball.
So,
yeah.
No, I agree with you.
I think it'd be good for their offense if he took a few mid-range jump shots a game. I don't think he's going to shoot 0% on them either.
I keep telling you this. There's a reason why he won't shoot.
Okay.
We can go back and forth, but I'm never going to get to these stories to start your morning. Despite encouraging MRI results, it looks like LeBron James suffered a significant left groin strain. The King is expected to miss several games. Nick, what was your reaction to this?
I mean, this is not that different from what we heard yesterday initially when they said he was day-to-day. I'm very curious what several's going to end up meaning. Is several going to mean 3 to 5, or is it going to mean 8 to 10? If it's 3 to 5, it's what I think most people thought initially. If it's 8 to 10, that is more significant than it would appear the team was letting on and LeBron was letting on early. I don't think we're going to find out until we're midway or done with this homestand.
Anytime LeBron James is not in the lineup, it's significant. He tells you it's important for him to be there. He believes one of his number one skills is his ability to be available. His streak as far as games played in, it's important to him. His streak as far as double figures game, it's important to him. So for me, I think it's significant. That's why I thought he went back to Los Angeles and didn't travel with the team to get an MRI, because they knew it was more than just a minor strain. Growing, yes.
All right, moving on
strain his quad and everything
to the Warriors. They lost an overtime thriller to the Blazers last night, 110-109. Golden State just couldn't close it out late in the game, paired with an abysmal night from the free throw line, going 6 of 15. Nick, you worried at all about the Warriors' recent shooting struggles?
I'm not worried about their shooting struggles. I'm not worried about the Warriors. This is a bad loss now. Draymond actually hit a key three in the corner in overtime. Looked like it was going to be.
He was far more aggressive playing last night offensively.
Absolutely, and I think had 15 points due to it. It looked like that was going to be the winning shot. The Warriors never lose a game in this situation. Up 2 with the ball less than 10 seconds because they've got the greatest free throw shooting team typically that in modern NBA history. Steph turned the ball over. Dame came down, hit a killer 3. That was it.
Yeah, Jenna, I'm concerned. I know Steve Kerr's concerned. The players, you can see their overall body language. One of the highlights. Draymond, one of the best passers in the league, throwing the ball off of Klay's head. Klay is not shooting the ball. He didn't shoot the ball again well last night. So if you look at these losses, these back-to-back, with teams that aren't as talented as them, I'm concerned about it. And I know that Steve Kerr and the brass there, because it's not just some switch you can hit. This is the worst basketball they've played in 5 years.
Wow. All right, moving on to college football. Oklahoma taking on Alabama tomorrow in the Orange Bowl. Bama, a 2-score favorite in the college football playoff semifinal. See, what does Kyler Murray need to do to keep the Sooners in this one?
Oh, man, they got to be able to run the ball. They got to be able to win time possession, because if not, Alabama is too strong, too deep for Oklahoma. Now, Oklahoma has a good roster, but their defensive line, their inability to be able to get to the quarterback and get to Alabama, I believe will be the big difference in the game. Like, these are two major institutions, but when you look at the pass rushers and the pass coverage people, these are like a D1 school, and Oklahoma's going to look like a junior college as far as their defense.
And Oklahoma's defense just gives it away sometimes. Just guys covering the wrong person, missed assignments. So Kyler Murray is going to have to play as well as he's ever played in a game to make this close. The silver lining for Oklahoma is, if you look at over the last 5 years, the only games Alabama's lost, other than games in the Iron Bowl, have been to quarterbacks that are dual threats like this, whether it's Deshaun Watson, Johnny Manziel, Chad Kelly at Ole Miss, Cam Newton in the Iron Bowl. Go ahead, Steve.
The one thing, when you get that stat, though, everyone always pulls that stat. But look at the rushing yards. Yeah. So it wasn't the quarterback and just his ability to be able to get in and out of the pocket. It was how many times they ran the ball. Alabama has a problem if you have that type of balance. Those dual-threat quarterbacks brought that rare balance and gave Bama's defense problems.
All right, let's end with the Cowboys. They're taking on the Giants in Week 17. Dallas locked into the 4 seed with their NFC East title, but they will reportedly still trot their stars out onto the field. See, what do the Cowboys need to shore up now on this team heading into the playoffs?
Well, you got to be concerned, especially when you look at the teams in the NFC. You have to be concerned about that offensive line and the lack of pass protection. That's either Dak recognizing when he's hot and he's got to get rid of the ball, or the offensive line pass protecting better than they have throughout this season. Besides that, their passing game. So for me, all the emphasis should be, how do I improve my passing game? How do I become more consistent? How do I get Amari Cooper started and involved, because that offense is different? But ultimately, if you can't protect your quarterback in these playoffs, these are the two things I think are the most significant changes that Dallas, or improvements that they need to address headed into week number 17.
If they're going to play Dak Prescott, which they are, they've got to be doing it to try to get something out of it. And what I would hope they're trying to get out of it, I should say, is some type of downfield passing. It's really hard in this league to go 20 of 25 passing in a game and have it not be a good game. And that's what it was for Dak this past week against Tampa Bay. He was 20 of 25, didn't throw a pick, didn't fumble the football, and I still thought it was a pretty poor game, because on those 20 completions, they got 161 yards. Like, I know that Dak can be accurate within an 8-yard window. I know he can dump it off to either Cole Beasley on a quick slant or Zeke coming out of the backfield, but some type of momentum with Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper on the outside, that is the only thing separating Dallas from being, it's a nice story, it's a decent team heading in the playoffs, and a real threat, because every other part of their team, other than their passing game, and the offensive line plays a part of that, of course, is playing very well, their defense and their running game.
But how many games this season have we come out of it, maybe one, that big game with Amari Cooper, and said, Dak looked good, he was throwing downfield, he was accurate, they really opened up the offense? I mean, this has been the thing we've taken week to week with this Dallas team. It doesn't seem like they're going to figure it out in 1 week heading into the playoffs. It's
an ongoing theme. This is what they're going to have to do to improve. If you ask us, Dallas, if they lose in the playoffs, you ask us, what is Dallas going to do 2019? They need to improve their passing game. They need to be able to protect their quarterback. Dak Prescott's got to be able to grow going into year number 4. That's what we do in this league. It's no different than Ben Simmons learn how to shoot the basketball. These guys have to improve on this. Dak's a good player. He's not a great player, and the reason why is because his game is limited. Dallas, they got a good roster, not a great roster, because of their inability to be able to balance out that defense with some big plays and the continuity of a consistent passing game.
accuracy is something you can work on. Is sort of opening up the game a little, throwing down. Is that something that's in his wheelhouse to improve
It's no different than shooting. You got to be able to earn that respect to be able to throw the ball 40 times. Make a few shots from 5 feet, 10 feet, 15 feet. You have to earn that from the coaches when they trust you, because the longer the quarterback has the ball in his hands, the more risk the offense and the offensive coordinator is taking. You have to be able to win their trust over. That's one thing I learned at Ohio State. Always has been a running institution. They told us, you're going to have to, as a wide receiver, you're going to have to force us to throw you the ball by winning the trust in practice in the limited times that you do have. That is the challenge to the Cowboys.
And that's why that Colts game was such a stomach punch for them. Dak threw the ball 54 times in that Eagles game, mostly in that fourth quarter and overtime. And so in that Colts game, now some of it was by necessity because they were trailing. The second most times he's thrown it all year was that Colts game. And he was awful. So then all of a sudden they drew it back down. It's like, okay, you're going to throw it 20, 25 times. Make sure you don't kill us. We trust our defense and our running game to win this football game. But Amari is a legitimate number one, and Michael Gallup is emerging as a rookie as a legitimate deep threat. And I know that Dak can throw the play action pass deep. Like, maybe he doesn't have that great deep out, but I know he can throw over the top deep. At least at an adequate level. They're going to have to make some of those plays to upset some teams in the playoffs. Maybe they can win their home playoff game against likely Seattle. It's almost assuredly who they would play in the first round without that. But if they're going to actually upset someone on the road, they're not going to be able to do it in a 17-13 win. All
right, let's move on to the Vikings. They have a simple playoff scenario, win and they're in, but that is much easier said than done. Minnesota hosts a very good Bears team on Sunday who are slated to play all their stars. A lot of eyes on Kirk Cousins. The Vikings quarterback was guaranteed $84 million this offseason for exactly this type of game. Here is Cousins on what's on the line Sunday.
It's not complicated. I want to win. We want to win. We understand what's at stake. There's no magic formula. There's no button you can push or hours you can put in to suddenly snap your fingers and guarantee a win. So you do all you can, give everything you have. There have been plenty of games this year where I've given everything I have and we don't come out on top and I don't have a great game. But there have also been plenty of games where I do that exact same process and it's more than good enough, and I played at a very high level and we played at a very high level. So you just have to be the best team that night.
All right, CC, let's break down this game plan just a little bit. What do Kirk Cousins and the offense need to do if they are going to pick apart this Bears defense?
Well, it seems like every time you talk about the Vikings, all they talk about is Kirk Cousins. And you mentioned it in the lead-in, $84 million. Ever since then, that's all people are talking about. This is not a Vikings team that was dependent upon their quarterback. This organization, they've done well in the draft. Their limited participation in free agency. They have developed a lot of good players on the team. We never mentioned the defense. Mike Zimmer, he's a head coach. He cut his teeth in this league by defensive coordinating. That defense has not been consistent. Started off the season very, very bad. The offensive line, which is the worst unit on the team, hadn't been supported by a consistent running game. We should have more conversations about the Vikings defense. Are they leading this team? Because that's where all their money is. All right, you talk about Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is one of the few guys on the offense getting paid like that. All their money, for the most part, is on that defense. You can look up and down the roster. Look at their defensive front. Look at their linebackers. Look at their corners and their safety. All of them are paid a premium because they have played on a Pro Bowl level. And then you bring in Kirk Cousins. The last two games is more of a true snapshot of what this team should look like. They've supported a quarterback by running the ball 56% of the time since they had to fire someone. So their overall philosophy, I believe at this point, is the only time that matched up with the head coach and the organization as far as what they're going to do. They got an outstanding defense. They have to play to that defense. You have to try to control the clock. And then you can run some play action, two-man routes with the great receiver tandem that you do have. So for me, the conversation shouldn't be centered around Kirk Cousins because the team was not put together that way.
And the defense this year, despite the poor start, they're third in the league in yards. They're the number one third down defense, the number one red zone defense, the number one sacking defense. If you care about the points, which is what Coach Mangini says, that's the most important stat. They're seventh, which is down from second last year. But the defense hasn't been as dominant as was last season, but I don't think they've been losing games this year because the defense has been killing them. They were losing games this year because they had such a skewed run-pass ratio. They fired their offensive coordinator because of it. And in my eyes, Kirk Cousins was playing a little below the level I expected him to play. I didn't think they got an all-pro quarterback. I didn't think they even got one of the 5 or 6 best quarterbacks in football. I don't think the Vikings thought that. The money they paid him was because he was a quarterback that hit free agency, true free agency, and that never happened. So he's going to get paid. But he's got to play well in this game. Like, that is true. A guy who's 4-25 in his career against teams that finished with a winning record that we saw the last 2 weeks, the team and Kirk have played well. Kirk's played very well when supported by a running game. But against bad football teams, this is a win and you're in game. For a team that last year won 13 games, fair or not, if he doesn't play well and they lose, the scrutiny is going to be on him. And that is not unique to the Vikings. That is across the league, that if a team underachieves and the passing game is supposed to be a major part of their offense, and while most of their talent's on defense, they did give Stephon Diggs a big contract, and Thielen is playing at a very high level. They just have him on a bargain contract. They do have talent on offense. They have a bad offensive line. I think Dalvin Cook's a good player. I know Diggs and Thielen are good players. I know that the tight end, when healthy, has been a good player. So if they don't win this game, and their offense struggles, it's going to be fair to point some fingers at the quarterback.
Yeah, you need to point at the defense, too, though. They are going against Chicago Bears.
Sure.
Okay, they are. So, yes, Kirk Cousins, would you like to see a better record against winning teams? Absolutely. Even with the Vikings, you'd like to be able to see that. But the rest of the team was participating in those games, too. The defense was not good. If you look at the teams with the winning record, look at the defense's rating against those teams compared to against the other teams, because those numbers are significantly different. So in those teams that had winning records, they weren't a top 10 defense. So they have not been able to gel together. Yes, we're going to talk about the quarterback, but the number one thing was he was a free agent. Sam Bradford got,
Got $20 million a year.
Oh,
right?
He got $20 million
to
Sam Bradford
play 2 games.
Okay, in Arizona. So
sure.
We need to measure all the things that we say based on. There's a lot of people out there making money, but it doesn't matter if you give a quarterback $100 million. If you don't invest in that offensive line, if you don't run the football, it's going to be hard to be able to get your value out of whatever you pay that quarterback.
Listen, I think we do some weird pocket watching with NFL players a lot. He's paid because he gambled on himself. He took the free agent tag. He turned down multiple contracts, and he said, I'm not going to get hurt. I'm going to play well, and I'm going to hit the lottery. And by the way, in 2 years, might hit it again because they can't franchise him. He's going to hit true free agency again. That's not, to me, a big part of the math. If he would have, I'd feel the same way about him if he was making $24 million instead of $28 million or $27 million. What is part of the math is I think this team has underperformed. I think Kirk Cousins had an opportunity on the road against New England, on the road against Seattle to play a good game. Didn't. Now he has another opportunity at home against the Bears to get his team into the playoffs. He does that. He erases a lot of the questions that have been attached to him this year. If he doesn't, even against a very good Bears defense, those questions are going to be as loud as ever.
I don't believe that. I think that Kirk Cousins, even if the Vikings are able to win this game, because who Kirk Cousins is. It's always. When he was drafted behind RG3, there was always question marks. Why did they draft him? Then they put him into the lineup. He won the starting job. Well, man, should he be the starter? Then he threw for 4,000 yards. Oh, he should be better at that. Then they franchised him. Why are they franchising him? Why are they paying him that amount of money? Then he played well again, threw for 4,000 yards again. Then the Vikings, he was totally a free agent. He's the only quarterback of that kind that has reached total free agency. The Vikings gave him a great contract. But we don't talk about the other guys making money either. So for me, the Vikings have not had the glue as far as the units, offense, defense, and special teams, and the philosophy of the head coach all together at one time.
All right, let's take a break. Leave it there. Coming up, does the Pats' Super Bowl run rely solely on home field advantage? Talk Patriots next on First Things First. Back here, First Things First, we're joined by former Super Bowl champion, Cris.
Good morning, Jenna.
What's up?
Former Super Bowl champion?
Super Bowl champion.
Yeah, I don't think you can be a former Super Bowl.
It was my bad. I shouldn't have read the prompt.
At least you got introduced this morning, Cris.
I might have. Minor oversight. I forgot to introduce my better halves of Nick and Cece.
Minor.
That being said, look who's here. Cris Canny's here, Super Bowl champion. Hey, Canny, it has been a tale of two different seasons for the New England Patriots this year. One on the road, one at home. Best of times, worst of times. Pats are undefeated at Gillette this season, but very defeated away from Gillette this season, going 3-5. They have a chance to clinch a first-round bye and home field advantage until the conference final with a win against the Jets on Sunday. All right, Cris Canny, how important is a first-round bye to the Patriots' Super Bowl chances? How much do they need it?
Well, I think it's going to be big for them because the Patriots have not won a Super Bowl without being the first or second seed. So I think that's important to keep in mind. And this Patriots team in particular, all the games they lost this season have been on the road. They're 3-5 on the road. And Tom Brady has a losing record on the road in the postseason. So, I mean, obviously, it puts you in a better position if you're one of 4 teams that has a chance to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl as opposed to 1 and 6 teams. And then, of course, being able to have at least one home playoff game, that's going to be big. When you look at the landscape of the AFC, the teams that are going to qualify for the postseason, if you're talking about having to win one game, there's probably not a head coach quarterback combination that I trust more than Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. So I think if you were one of those top 2 seeds in the AFC, you have a significant advantage in terms of being able to qualify and make the Super Bowl.
Well, and you mentioned they haven't won a Super Bowl without having the bye. They haven't even been to it. You know what I mean? All of their 8 Super Bowl appearances have come being the 1 or the 2 seed. And I guarantee you in a few weeks, however the bracket falls, assuming the Pats stay the 2 and the Chiefs stay the 1, whomever the Chiefs are playing in that first playoff game, there's going to be a lot of people picking that as the upset of the divisional round. Whether it's the Chargers playing them for a 3rd time, if the Ravens are playing them. So the Patriots are, if they are the 2 seed, are in decent position to potentially never go on the road this postseason. To have everything come through Gillette, despite having what I would consider, I think most people would consider, an underwhelming and by their standards, disappointing season. I think it's critically important. I think it's critically important they do not fall to the 3 line. They don't somehow get upset by Sam Darnold and the Jets this weekend and put themselves in a position where it's guaranteed they are on the road in the 2nd round and likely they're on the road in the conference final. I think that if the Patriots win this weekend, they become the clear-cut 2nd favorite in the AFC just behind Kansas City. If they don't win this weekend, then I would pick maybe 2 or 3 teams ahead of them in the AFC.
There's no team, absent of the Saints, in the NFL, given the tremendous amount of parity we have, that does not need the bye week. Now we always measure it based on New England's success. You know the reason why? Because don't nobody else have no history. So now we say, oh, well, that's the best way to get to the Super Bowl. The Pats have done it more. If you look at all the teams that have won the Super Bowls, the most of them, that being the Pats, the Steelers, the Cowboys, the 49ers, all those teams, look at their home records. When they win those games in the playoffs, you go to a stadium, 70,000. They might give you 5,000 tickets in the upper corner of the end zone. Now, you are truly in a gladiator-type Coliseum atmosphere. So you were at the NFC Championship game. You were astounded by the crowd and how involved they were. In the playoffs, the home field advantage is critical. And then now you're going to give the greatest coach ever. You're going to give him, regardless of how talented his team is, you're going to give him 2 weeks.
Extra week.
Now, there's one thing that we always say in the league. Everyone has the same amount of time to prepare. So for me, if you give me Belichick, Andy Reid, same amount of time, who got the advantage? Belichick, because he's proven to me that he's done it more than anyone else. So I think that us talking about the Patriots, how they need to buy, in this year's NFL playoffs, everyone needs the bye. I just believe New England, because they have the history, they will take advantage of the bye more so. They will utilize the time and break down not only their opposition, but themselves to see what kind of team that they want to have moving forward.
Just real quick to expand on Cris' point before you jump in. That under this current playoff format, teams with a bye make the Super Bowl right around 40% of the time. Teams without a bye make the Super Bowl right around 6% of the time. It is stark for everybody. That's everybody. That's just not just New England, obviously. Yep. And it's not only because of the home field. It's that one less game. It is, if you look at each playoff game as essentially a coin flip, you go from a 1-4 chance to a 1-8 chance to a 1-4 chance. It's one less coin flip opportunity, one less week for you to get beat up, and one more week for you to get healthy.
No, you're absolutely right. But in looking at this Patriots team, the last month of the season, we've said they've struggled a little bit, and they haven't looked like themselves.
Sure.
Even the game against Buffalo, I mean, that passing attack, I mean, it looked really bad. They need to get back on track. They need to try to find an identity for this team. But I think the couple of things that they have working for them is offensively, they can run the football. They racked up 270 yards rushing against a pretty good Buffalo Bills defense.
Yes.
And then, of course, their defense has been opportunistic with the takeaways. I think there's 6 in total takeaways with 25 on the season. So those two things do translate to success in the postseason. And I think by being able to have that running game, you're giving Tom Brady an opportunity to figure out that passing attack. And, of course, if you're at Gillette at home in the postseason, I have confidence that Tom Brady will come through for this team.
Okay, so you look at the schedule and you're like, oh, Patriots-Jets, that's a Patriots win, and it's almost a given. But you just mentioned that they struggled against Buffalo. This team has not played well against them, even at home or away, and I get that. But is there a chance that the Jets could upset? You know this Jets team better than anyone. Is there a chance the Jets can pull off this upset?
If the Pats play the way they did against Buffalo, the Jets can beat them. I believe. I'm not saying they will beat them, but they can. The Jets, Sam Darnold the last 3 weeks, finally, and I shouldn't say finally like it was overdue, but we are seeing Sam Darnold play his best football the last 3 weeks of the year, not surprisingly. Like, the Pats have to play better this week than they did last week in my eyes.
Yeah, the last 10 quarters that Sam Darnold has played, the second half of that Buffalo Bills game and then against the Texans and the Green Bay Packers. I mean, that game last week against the Packers, they were in control for the first 3 quarters of that game. They had a 15-point lead going into the fourth quarter, but then, of course, Aaron Rodgers did his thing. But you look at that game, you look at the Texans game, he gave his team the go-ahead score with about 5 minutes left in that game. He led engineer a drive that ended in an Eli McGuire touchdown. They've played well offensively. He's played well, and that defense has been getting after the quarterback, and we know that's the formula to beat Tom Brady and the Patriots, disrupt that passing game.
Yeah, Jen, I do believe that the Jets do have a significant chance. They have the intel. Todd Bowles has put together good game plans going against this Belichick outfit, and they're not as explosive, so that you don't fear them as much. So you can blitz the quarterback and get after it. One thing I think is significant for this weekend, we had 5 quarterbacks drafted in the first round. We got 3 of them playing in significant games. Lamar playing in the big game with them. If they win, they're able to get in. Baker Mayfield, he's able to upset him in that same game. And Sam Darnold, what he's able to do to be able to finish out his rookie season. All 3 of them can put an exclamation mark on a tremendous season. Sam Darnold trying to get it done against a team that he believes that he's going to dominate them when he takes over and gets this Jets franchise, get everything turned around.
And the Jets have not, like Todd Bowles probably going to lose his job this offseason, but they have not quit on him, man. Like, they've done the opposite. They played their best football late. They could have beaten the Texans 2 weeks ago. They were right there on that Saturday game if people were watching it. And you mentioned last week, they had the Packers beat, and it took a spectacular Aaron Rodgers rally late and overtime to win that game. And let's not forget, when these 2 teams played earlier in the year, granted, that was a road game for New England, that's 13-13 late in the third quarter. The Pats end up stretching it out, I think won 27-13, but they played them close late. I'm not saying Jets are going to win, but Pats are going to have to play better than they have this last month of football.
Chris Canty, we'll see you a little bit later on the show. Got to take a break. Coming up, is James Harden his own biggest supporter for MVP? Talk some basketball next on First Things First.
If you don't believe in yourself, Jenna, who will?
You.
Well, we don't have to lie to America. It was more of a rhetorical question.
No, but you know I was going to answer it. Back here, First Things First, we're joined by FS1 NBA analyst Cris Broussard. Good morning, Chris.
Great to be here.
A lot of Chris's
now
in the house today. Chris Canty, Cris Broussard. No, we don't want to get rid of you, so feel free to overstay your welcome.
I will.
Well, basketball last night, Rockets playing host to the Celtics, and the beard got a little weird. James Harden went off for 45 points, 6 assists, finishing 9 of 18 from deep. I just got the squirrel.
There you go.
The reigning MVP has now scored at least 35 in 6 straight games. Houston takes down Boston 127-113 for their 8th win in 9 games. Here's James Harden on if people should be mentioning his name in MVP talks again this season.
Of course I should be in that conversation. I mean, I receive a lot of hate, but, you know, that won't stop me from going out there and killing every single night and being that dog that I am. You can name, you know, a few other people that should be in the conversation, but realistically, it's coming back.
All right, Broussard, that's funny, but assuming that Harden maintains his MVP form, and it's a high level right now for him to maintain, but assuming he does, are the Rockets contenders?
He will maintain his MVP form. Now, I'm not saying he's going to average 39 and 9 or whatever he's averaging during this stretch, but he will continue to play great basketball. And if Chris Paul continues to go in and out of the lineup with injuries, Harden could lead the league in scoring and assists. Remember, the last year he played without Chris Paul, he averaged 11 assists a game. In this offense, his numbers are going to be huge. So contender, yes. Now, my pick is Golden State in the West. But can the Rockets be a contender with Harden playing like this? Without question. During this stretch, their defense has gotten it together, and their defensive rating isn't what it was last year during this stretch, but their net rating, their field goal percentage defense, they're actually holding teams better in terms of three-point shooting defense. They're playing better than last year. So I think they're getting it together on both ends of the floor. And here's the thing. Outside of Golden State, I believe Houston, when they're playing this way, can beat anybody in the NBA. Not saying they definitely would, but they could beat anybody in the NBA. And here's the thing about Golden State. We talked about it yesterday. Durant going for 4 straight rings if he stays next year, and nobody's done it since Bill Russell. Well, guess what nobody also has done since Bill Russell? Reached the finals 5 straight times. No team has done that. Reached the finals 5 straight times.
We assign it to
since
LeBron,
66.
but that's not the whole team around him. Exactly
right. I mean, he was with Cleveland and Miami. Yeah. So Golden State, they could falter for whatever reason. Dre and KD not getting together, fatigue, mental fatigue, whatever it might be. If they falter, Houston is right there with the best teams in the NBA and having a chance to get.
Listen, Golden State is the looming specter over all these NBA conversations. So when you ask me contender, to me, what that means is, can Houston be as good as anyone outside of Golden State, and maybe something awful, like maybe Golden State self-destructs or they have a really poorly timed injury, something like that. Because Golden State at full strength, I believe they'll get it together. And Houston, what they have is one of the very best players in the world who right now is playing as well as he's ever played. Like, in these last 10 games, he's scored more points than any player in a 10-game stretch in the NBA in a decade. More than Steph's greatest month, more than KD's greatest month his MVP year. Harden is, and he's doing it in such a unique way. Last night he had 35 combined three-point attempts and free throw attempts. Think about that. During this stretch, he's averaging more than 13 threes a game attempted and more than 13 free throws a game attempted.
But is that sustainable?
Well, not 13 and 13, but he's always been, ever since he became the man in Houston, he leads the NBA in free throws every single year, and he has just every year added more and more three-point attempts to his game. So 13 and 13 is not sustainable, but 10 and 11 is something like that. This type of play. He's a great player. He's frustrating to watch. Seems like he kind of games the system a bit, but his effectiveness cannot be denied. Houston has to get better defensively. I think a big part of their improvement defensively the last few weeks has been Clint Capella is playing to the level that I think they expected him to play to when they signed him to that contract. Austin Rivers has been a nice little addition for them as well. And then the other big question with them is Chris Paul going to be healthy come the end of the season? But these are all discussions we weren't having 3 weeks ago. The discussions 3 weeks ago were, are they going to claw their way back into the playoffs? To me, that question's been answered.
It's hard to believe that Nick said in the last 10 games he scored more than any player in the last 10 years. He's going to maintain that? That'd be impossible to maintain. Right. The thing that I don't like, because I don't believe Chris Paul is going to be consistent enough to be in the lineup. Yes, he can lead the league in scoring and assists, but his overall use rate is at an outrageous rate. Now, to me, I believe one of the most improved things about James Harden is his body. I believe he's in a lot better conditioning. You can see by the time he plays, he doesn't take as many defensive assignments off. He doesn't. As you can see, he's one of the league leaders in steals. But last night's game, 18 three-pointers. Now, the difference between him and Steph on shooting three-pointers is, and based on his use rate, I don't believe he's going to be able to shoot like that because he shoots all with his legs. Steph shoots a set shot to shot on his way up. James Harden shoots a jump shot, and it's hard to shoot 18, 15 three-pointers with your legs. You guys talk about the free throws and everything. Not worried about that, but being able to shoot like that with your legs. If you talk about all the great shooters, that being Ray Allen, Richard Hamilton, Reggie Miller, all these guys talked about as the season goes on, your legs get a lot more tired. And he is a jump-shooting, three-point artist. He's playing great, unbelievable. But for me, for him to be able to maintain that, I don't think it's realistic. Last night, 18 three-pointers, that's just hard for anyone to believe that that's maintainable for the rest of the season. It's December.
Right. All right, so they beat the Celtics last night. Which of those two teams do you trust more moving forward, Rockets or Celtics?
For all I just said, all the praise I heaped on the Rockets,
yeah.
The Celtics, I trust them more. Now, for the record, I haven't picked either team to get to the finals.
Right.
I have Golden State and Toronto. But if you're asking me which team I trust more, it is the Celtics. Look, James Harden, Chris Paul, Mike D'Antoni. When you think of those three people and their playoff resume, what comes to mind?
Disappointment.
Failure, right? In clutch moments.
They were right there from flipping that totally on its script last year against Golden State, but then Chris Paul got hurt.
Whether it's injuries with Chris Paul or just bad plays and faltering in the clutch, as we've seen at times, James Harden faltering in big moments, in big games, and Mike D'Antoni's lack of attention to detail. When they missed 27 straight threes in the game last year in the playoffs against Golden State, why not shoot a mid-range jump? I know it's against your philosophy, but come on, or go to the hole, something.
Watch the same game you're watching.
Right, right. And so that, and then the opposite of that is the Celtics.
Man, I don't know how anyone right now can believe in the Celtics.
Okay, I'm going to tell you. One of these two teams,
sure,
they've got the one player who's proven on the big stage, and that's Kyrie Irving.
No doubt.
Secondly, Brad Stevens is a great coach, and those other Celtics are gritty and grimy and tough. And if you look at a lot of their games, they get down, like last night, they get down big a lot and always come back. And their record against Milwaukee, Philly, and Toronto is 4-2. I still believe in it. Again, I'm not picking them, but I will not write that team off.
Here's my problem with Boston. We're 35 games into the year, and we're still saying, who are the real Boston Celtics? What if it's this team? A good team that right now has not figured out how to incorporate everyone. They didn't add 2 All-Stars, by the way. They added 1, Kyrie. Gordon Hayward, God bless him, he is not the player he was. He seems tentative when he goes in the lane. I don't blame him for any of this. That was a traumatic injury.
Paul George wasn't the same player either.
For the first year.
Right.
Exactly
he was
right.
Not the same player.
And it took him a full year. And so I don't know that we could just assign that Gordon Hayward all of a sudden is going to bang. Last night, Gordon Hayward, 2 of 5, 9 points. Not shocking. It's not like, wow, that was an awful game for Gordon Hayward. But they are still giving him minutes. And because of that, Jaylen Brown has regressed enormously. Jason Tatum, I don't want to say he's regressed, but he hasn't taken that next step we thought he would. The only guy on this team that's better than he was last year, other than Kyrie, and we knew how good Kyrie was, is Marcus Morris. Marcus Morris has been their second best player. And so I look at the East, and I say Toronto is excellent. Milwaukee, I think, is only getting better. Philly is seemingly a mess, yet still has a better record than Boston. And Philly, while I don't like them in a series against Boston, I like their overall ability to get through the regular season. Like, Vegas said Boston was going to win 60 games. They're 20-14. They'd have to go 40-8 the rest of the way. Like, they are drastically underachieving.
Yeah, but the rest of the NBA is too. Look what Golden State is. Look at everyone's record. So if you're going to say Boston's record, yeah, that's not what it is. Who is? No team is, but very few teams. Sacramento, there's a few teams.
Sacramento, Dallas.
Okay, but
sure.
Look at the top.
The top teams.
Absolutely. Toronto is probably where we thought that they would be. The edge to me is the coach when you get into series. All right? Now, I'm not going to say that the coach in Toronto is better than Brad Stevens because we've seen Brad. We've seen him make the adjustments. And the reason why we probably have more faith in Boston is because they have more talent. They have more options. They have more ways to victory than Harden being spectacular. And I trust their coach more. So I believe they'll make adjustments more in the series than Houston's going to be able to. I think it's all irrelevant because the Houston team that we saw on the court last night, I don't think it's going to be the same team. because they got no chance to win a championship. And I still believe that organization is going to try to make sure that window is pried open. And I think they're going to make a big trade.
I think
so. The team that we're looking at now is not going to be the same team. I do believe the Celtics, this is an odd year in the NBA. They do have 45 games to be able to get it together. This is the season. And we know they're going to be in the playoffs. We just trust them in those series more.
I also don't think, I'm not really looking at the regular season records as an indicator of who I like in the playoffs. When I'm talking about the top teams, Golden State, they might be the 3rd seed.
Here's the only reason you got to look at it. Boston last year in the playoffs. Unbeatable at home until Game 7 against Cleveland. Couldn't win on the road. Like, I do think home court for this team absolutely matters. And if you're the 4 seed...
But it's a totally different team. You already said it's a totally different team. And they're different when they had Kyrie.
You didn't have the superstar last year.
Okay.
And you were young.
All that's true, but I'm
going to tell you what, I trust Kyrie closing out games. Look at the play. I trust him going to Toronto against their point guard, and I damn sure enough trust him going against Philadelphia and whoever they put in the point guard in Philadelphia.
I agree with that.
Broussard, we'll see you a little bit later. Coming up, does anyone have more at stake on Sunday than the New England Patriots? That's next on First Things First. Coming up on New Year's Eve, the Redbox Bowl kicks off between Oregon and Michigan State at 2:30 Eastern on Fox, and then flip over to FS1 as number 17 Utah battles number 22 Northwestern in the San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl at 6:30 Eastern, or catch it all on the Fox Sports app. We'll get to Nick Foles and the Eagles in a second, but first, couple of big plays from last night. Lakers-Kings, Darren Fox with a nice move towards the basket. Big slam.
Great little set play there here. They ran a pick on the guy that is picker. See the big guy in the lane? They ran another pick on him. I hadn't seen teams do that in a long, long time. See him pick him in the lane?
No help defense.
Oh, my goodness.
Possible there. And De'Aaron's a lefty with the lefty slam. He is having a spectacular second season. Best player on the most surprising team in the league.
Good little high school quarterback, too. His favorite athlete, Michael Vick.
Oh.
Did not know that. Sixers Jazz. We saw Ben Simmons working on his J before the game. Here it is in the game last night.
Little fadeaway jumper from Ben Simmons. We will see if it happens. I would be very surprised.
Well, it already hadn't happened, so you're already wrong.
Okay, well, if you let me finish, you'd know what I was about to say. Couldn't be wrong because it hasn't happened yet. If over the rest of the season, Ben Simmons starts to take more mid-range jump shots.
Well, I'm going to tell you what we're not going to do. Every time he makes a jump shot, we're not going to have him on our highlights of some charity case.
Hold on. You said last year when we showed him dunking, you wanted to see him making jump shots. Now we show him making jump shots, you don't like that either. Maybe we should show Ben Simmons.
Oh, we can get to that. I can arrange that.
Okay, no problem.
Texas Bowl, Baylor-Vandy. Baylor's Denzel Mims can't make the catch in the end zone, but Vanderbilt's Randall Haney can. Secures the interception.
Fortunate bounce. He does the Michael Jackson in the back of the end zone. Vandy coming up with the big play.
That would have been a pick in the NFL. Both feet, both heels up. Mims, the wide receiver, tries to tell him why he's hot, can't, ends up being a pick in the end zone.
Yeah, I tell my little high school kids, work on 2 feet. Well, why, Coach? We only need 1. One day you might need two.
Hey, you guys want to play Take Your Pick?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay,
long
time
as it's not
now.
Ben Simmons, I'm on.
For Take Your Pick. The AFC North is on the line on Sunday. Steelers secure the division with a win against Cincy, and a Ravens loss to the Cleveland Browns. For Baltimore, they win and they're in. So who wins the AFC North? CC, Steelers or Ravens? Take your pick.
Ravens get it done. That's what you expect this Ravens team. They positioned themselves. They were rebuilding. Now they position themselves. They're in the same spot last year. If they win, get into the playoffs, I believe this defense gets them done. Lamar Jackson has ignited this offense that now with this new running style that they have, man, they are a dangerous football team.
Last year, Andy Dalton broke their hearts in Week 17, knocking them out of the playoffs, helped the Buffalo Bills get in. I do not think Baker Mayfield's able to do it this week. This defense is so good at everything except for forcing turnovers. Very tough test for Baker. I think the Ravens win in a good game, in a close game, and that's enough to secure the AFC North.
All right, a ton on the line in the NFC as well. Nick Foles and the Eagles make the playoffs with a win in Washington and a Vikings loss to Chicago. For Minnesota, it's a little more simple. Win and they're in. So who will secure the final playoff spot in the NFC? Is it the Eagles or Vikings? Nick?
I think both of us expect the Eagles to beat Washington. And so the question is, will the Vikings beat the Bears? I do not think they will. So because of that, I think the Eagles get in. I think the Bears, they're saying they're playing their starters. Even if they pull their quarterback, Mitch Trubisky, Chase Daniel has some experience this year, and it's not a massive drop-off between the two. And that defense is deep and excellent, even if they have Khalil Mack take some time off in the second half. So for all those reasons, I think the Bears win that game against Minnesota. I think the Bears knock the Vikings out of the playoffs. I think the Eagles go.
Yeah, I think the Vikings are going to win this game. I think the Bears collectively as an organization, when you get halfway through these games, because the Rams aren't going to lose at home. They can't improve their spot if the Rams don't lose. They start to pull the starters. It takes away a lot of intensity in your preparation when guys know I might play, I might not play. Vikings have a huge advantage. They should win this game playing at home.
All right, nothing bigger than home field in the playoffs. Right now, the Patriots are the 2 seed in the AFC. They can get as high as the 1 seed, but can also drop out of the first round with a loss. The Bears need a win, plus a Rams loss to Arizona to secure a bye. So who is home field more beneficial to, the Pats or the Bears? CC, take your pick.
I'm going to take the Bears. The reason why, they don't have experience at coach. They don't have experience at quarterback. And there's no positions more important than those two. Nagy would benefit from playing at home. Their quarterback, Trubisky, would benefit from playing at home. The greatest quarterback ever, he can win any place. He can go to Kansas City and win. Any place they're playing football, Tom Brady can win. Bears need it more than the Pats.
The Bears have a great defense, and what do people say? Defense travels. The Pats have not traveled well at all this year, so I'm going to say the Patriots. If the Chiefs end up losing their first playoff game and everything goes through New England becomes the drastic favorites to go back to their 9th Super Bowl in this era. Like, I don't expect the Patriots to lose a playoff game at home this year. I think the Bears could lose a playoff game at home and also win one on the road because they're such a defensive-dominated team. So I say the Patriots.
All right, the college football playoffs kick off on Saturday. Bama and Clemson are both huge favorites over Oklahoma and Notre Dame, respectively. So who has the better chance to pull off the major upset? Oklahoma or Notre Dame? Nick, take your pick.
I want to be clear here. I expect both favorites to win and win handily in these games. But if you're telling me one of these teams is going to be upset, I think it's going to be the Oklahoma offense. Just go score for score for score with Alabama, and it's the last team that has the ball type of win games, and Oklahoma gets it done. They've got Kyler Murray's playing outstanding. I agree with C that if they're going to have any chance, they're going to have to run the football. He's going to have to be a big part of that. He became the first quarterback in college football history this year to average 300 passing and 60 rushing. He's going to have to be outstanding. I say Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, I'm concerned about their ability to stay up with Alabama. Alabama is so much more physical than them. The Big 12 defenses and the lack of defensive backs, I believe that they will be proved to be a huge deficit for the team. Alabama's going to blow Oklahoma out. Like, they're going to blow them out. Kyler Murray's best receiver is banged up. Kid from Miami, Hollywood, he's banged up going back there. So I believe Notre Dame. Notre Dame and Alabama are the only 2 ball-control teams in this. Keep that time possession away from Clemson. Clemson is a different defense without Dexter Lawrence on the field. The numbers indicate that. Notre Dame pulls off the upset over Clemson.
You know, Kyler Murray has a cold.
I think
Does anyone sympathize with him more than I do?
Oh.
Yeah, but he showed up to practice. He was at practice. He just didn't do the press conference.
That was a lob. Coming up is Sunday, the beginning of an incredible run for Andrew Luck. What is it?
Nothing, Jenna.
Next on First Things First.
There's something about auctions that makes shopping so much more fun. For sports fans, it probably has something to do with the competition and suspense that auctions provide. But who wants to spend time researching where their nearest auction house is and then make the trek all the way there? I definitely don't. And that's why I love Pristine Auction, an online sports auction house where you can buy and sell sports memorabilia from the comfort of your own home. Pristine Auction runs tons of different auction formats, including multiple weekly auctions, a premium monthly auction, as well as daily and 10-minute auctions. They guarantee the authenticity of all of their items, and everything you purchase comes from only the most trusted sources. And the best part, it's so affordable. I just saw an autographed Ricky Stenhouse Jr. photo that sold for only $6. Go check out Pristine Auction now. You'll be hooked. It's free to register, free to bid, and you only pay for the items you win. That's pristineauction.com. And when you register, Be sure to select First Things First podcast from the drop-down menu in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Let them know we sent you. Make sure you select First Things First podcast from the drop-down menu when you go to pristineauction.com.
We are back here on First Things First. We're going viral. Donovan Mitchell dropped 23 in a losing effort last night against Philly. However, he did get some great news earlier in the day. Check out this tweet from Blaze. I'm lucky enough to know Donovan since I was in 2nd grade, and I now have the honor of being the first one to introduce and interview Donovan Mitchell on the launch of his new Adidas shoe. Donovan responded to the tweet by saying, blessed with the praying hands emoji, which I thought was a high five this whole time. Mitchell's shoe will be called the Don Issue #1.
All right, so 2 things. One, Jenna, you're not the only person. A lot of people get confused that the
High
praying
five.
hands or high five.
Thank you.
So you're not the only one. Don't feel
Okay.
badly there. For Donovan Mitchell, there's fewer NBA players than you would think that have their own actual signature shoe. There's only about a dozen of them. So this is a big deal for him. It's really cool. I guess Don stands for determination over negativity. Also, of course, his name, Donovan, so that's why it's Don Issue #1. So one of your favorite guys, see?
Yeah, definitely a hallmark moment for any athlete that gets their own shoe. Guys dream about, man, one day I want to have a contract with the shoe company. Really don't even think about one day having your own shoe. Tremendous, tremendous honor.
Is there a high five emoji? Just not to
I
harp
think
on
people
it.
use that as it's both. The praying hands and the high five.
I
have
gave
been
you
turned
one of
into
those last week. I thought it was a high five, but I
Yeah.
also was praying for you. So.
I thought it was you were just repeating ever since I met you. I've been praying.
Time now. Let's toss to break. Time now for stories to start your morning. Despite encouraging MRI results, it looks like LeBron James suffered a significant left groin strain. The King is expected to miss several games. CeCe, what was your reaction to this news?
I mean, I thought it was significant with LeBron not being out there because that's one of the things that he takes a lot of pride in. When he didn't come onto the court, when the team decided not to get an MRI locally there in the Oakland area or go to Sacramento, where the team was traveling to, when they decided to bring him back to Los Angeles, get an MRI there, that made it more significant to me. Any game LeBron James misses is significant in the 16th year of his career because he has only missed a few. Don't rush yourself back to make this worse than what it is right now.
And he's never had an extended stretch of time missed due to injury. He missed 16 games the first season in Cleveland, and it was dealing with a back, but it was also, he kind of took a mid-season vacation. Other than that, he's played at least 74 games every year of his career. I'm very interested to see what several means. Does several mean 3 to 5? Lakers survived that. Does it mean 8 to 10? Not sure how well they can survive that. So this is obviously something very important to watch after they lost a game last night that they had firm control over.
The Warriors lost an overtime thriller to the Blazers last night, 110-109. Golden State couldn't close it out late in the game, paired with an abysmal night from the free throw line, going 6 of 15, rare for this team. Nick, you worried at all about the Warriors' recent shooting struggles?
The shooting struggles I am not worried about. The fact that they're no longer a dominant home team is really interesting to me. They have, I think, 4 20-point home losses this year. Yesterday, they lost a game. Last night, they lost a game that they never lose, where they've got a 2-point lead late with the ball with 10 seconds left, and they turn the ball over. Because if it turns into free throw competition, the Warriors almost always win that game. So they are showing a little cracks in the armor, but I don't think it's sustainable cracks, if you will.
Well, Jenna, I'm concerned a number of things. They used to never lose at home. Now they're doing that. Back-to-back losses at home. That's something we're not used to seeing. And one of the things that made them so special was their overall offensive efficiency. With Klay not shooting the way we're used to seeing, Draymond played better last night, but I believe his struggles will continue on the offense. And then you add Boogie Cousins to that mix, where we don't know what that's going to do. So if a team that's been great shooting the ball continues to struggle, yes, that would be a great concern of mine.
They did have a great look at the end to win it. I thought KD was going to make that 12-footer we just showed.
All right, ending with the Cowboys taking on the Giants in Week 17. So Dallas is locked into that 4th seed with their NFC East title, but they will reportedly still trot out their stars onto the field Sunday. CeCe, what do the Cowboys need to do to shore up on this team heading into the playoffs?
A couple things, and most of them being on the offensive side. You got to be able to protect Dak Prescott. too many sacks. That also leads to him understanding what protections are weaker than the other ones. Where are my soft spots in this protection to be able to get rid of the football, to be able to help out that offensive line? Because I just don't believe you can continue to take that many sacks and continue to be effective offensively. Typically, when you get sacked in a drive in the NFL, you're not going to score points. That in the passing game. It has not been dependable, not only the short passing game, but being able to throw the ball consistently deep on a regular basis. I know in talking to Sanjay Lau, their wide receiver coach, one thing he was trying to improve in their passing game with Amari Cooper, because he didn't say Dak was not a good deep ball thrower, but he said Amari Cooper, he thought in the wide receivers could be a lot better at running deeper patterns down the field. So trying to get both of those groups on the same page with that passing attack.
I'm in full agreement that one of the reasons you're playing Dak this week is because you don't want him to go into the playoffs having played a terrible game against Indy and then a game against Tampa where he completed 80% of his passes, 20 of 25 for 160 yards. Like, it's tough to have no picks, 80% completions in a bad game passing. I think Dak did that. But the other part, and this isn't just Dak, is the red zone stuff. This is the 30th ranked red zone team. There aren't many things I can say with certainty about these NFL playoffs, but here's one of them. If the Cowboys struggle in the red zone in the playoffs, they're going to have a very short life in the playoffs. They do not have enough firepower offensively to overcome first and goal turning into 3 points, to overcome what they've been doing all year long, which is driving the ball down the field and then trotting out Brett Maher, who, by the way, has been one of the best kickers in football this year, for 28-yard field goals, for 22-yard field goals, because they're kicking from within the 5. They've got to be better in the red zone. That's obviously not deep down the field passing, but that does have to do with the passing game, and it has to do with what C's talking about, taking sacks. A lot of those red zone drives have been stalled because when they do call a passing play, Dak ends up on his back, and now you're in 3rd and goal from the 14, and nobody succeeds from that spot.
All right, let's move on to the Colts and Titans. 15 games played, and for these two teams, it all comes down to this. The winner gets a playoff berth. The loser gets an early vacation. Andrew Luck has the Titans' number, going a perfect 10-0 in his career against them. Wow. And with Colts winning 8 of their last 9, the safe bet would be Indy. But I'm not much of a gambler, said Nick Wright to me every day. CC, what do you expect to see in this game?
This should be a good football game. The Titans, very, very tough, very, very physical football team. In Vrabel's first year as a head coach, being the disciple of Belichick. This is a team that typically week in and week out, they're going to be buttoned up as far as the game time situations. They're going to try to run the football, eat up time possession. Marcus Mariota has been in and out of the lineup throughout the year. So to me, do I trust Andrew Luck more than the quarterback situation? Yes. And do I trust their defense, that being the Colts more so than the Titans? I do. And one reason only. There's only 3 teams in the NFL this year, that being the Texans and the Saints, that have not given up a 100-yard rusher, and that being the Colts. So if there's one dependable thing in this football game, you can depend on the Colts holding you under 100 yards rushing. Andrew Luck has been remarkable in his comeback, limited personnel. Eric Ebron resurrecting his career, making the Pro Bowl as a tight end after Detroit gave up on him. And we know always open T.Y. Hilton having a tremendous season. So to me, I think the Colts are able to get it done. Better football team, great story.
If the Colts are able to hold Derrick Henry under 100 yards, then I don't think the Titans have a path to victory. Like, the reason the Titans are in this position is because Derrick Henry the last 3 weeks has been extraordinary. 164 yards rushing per game is what he's averaging over the last 3 weeks, to go along with 7 touchdowns. Now, there was one monster game involved in that in national television, but the other 2 games surrounding it, he's been very good as well. The Titans are a team that went to the playoffs last year and overcame an 18-point halftime deficit on the road against Kansas City to win a playoff game last year. They have been around 500 all year long and just staying alive, and they go into Week 17 alive not only for the playoffs, but they could win that division if they win this game and the Texans lose on Sunday. So I don't want to disrespect the Titans, who are at home and have a shot in this game. But I would be very surprised if the Colts don't continue what they're doing. They started 1-5. Since then, they have played 8 really good games, with one confusing game, the loss to Jacksonville, where the offense could get nothing going. Andrew Luck, even with a hampered T.Y. Hilton, you saw him last week in the comeback against the Giants, making plays with his legs, finding guys downfield. he is the difference maker in this football game. He's the reason why. I guarantee you this, the rest of the AFC that's in the playoffs are rooting for Tennessee this weekend, because the Colts are a dangerous team if they get into the tournament.
We talk so much about trust. I have a hard time trusting Marcus Mariota. Whether he plays or not, I'm sure he will play. I have a hard time trusting him leading this Titans offense.
Yeah, he hasn't developed. You're right. You shouldn't trust him at this point. He should be far more effective as a passer. And with him being a dual threat, now we see him starting to get nicked up and starting to miss time. Their wide receiving core does not make the type of plays. Delaney Walker, they're all pro tight end. He's been out since the first game of the season. So it's been a challenge for them. Absent of their running game, their offensive line is a big, physical offensive line, and whoever's out there, please don't pick no fight with Taylor Lewan. Like, leave him alone. Like, he is a guy on a mission. He got bad things in mind. So they have not been able to match a consistent passing game with that dominant physical running attack.
We don't talk a ton about the Titans on this show, and if people who watch the show don't watch a lot of them, they are very similar in makeup to the Cowboys. They have a good running game. They have an excellent, underrated defense. This defense is second in points, 7th in yards, like second in the red zone. It's a very good defense. They have a good offensive line, most notably Taylor Lewan, who is just a nasty dude. But they're limited passing the ball. They've got 14 touchdowns to 10 interceptions this year between Gabbard and Mariota, between the two of them. Like, they have a lot of similarities to Dallas. They thought they had the deep threat that they drafted last year in Corey Davis. Hasn't developed the way they had hoped. Like, they can beat you in a ball control game, but I don't think the Colts are going to let it be a ball control game. I think the Colts are going to be able to score enough points to force Tennessee into passing situations, and I don't trust their passing attack.
Quickly, if the Colts win, how far into playoffs do you think they can go? Can they make a real run?
That's a little optimistic.
Okay.
That's a little optimistic. Andrew Luck, though, when you get into a tournament, you want a guy like him. So, man, can he pull out a game on the road? Yes, I do believe that. And the defense, if they're not going to give up a 100-yard rusher, you're going to be in every game.
And if the Jags have not been good this year, but the Jags still have an excellent defensive front. The Texans' offensive line has been awful all year. Deshaun Watson's the most sacked quarterback in football. The Jags could upset Houston. If they do that, then the Colts' first playoff game would be a home game. They win the division. If the Texans lose on Sunday afternoon, the winner of this game isn't just in the playoffs. They have a home game. They're the divisional winners. If that happens, then the Colts, to me, are a dangerous team.
A lot of ifs and thens. Take a break. Coming up, how much trouble are the Lakers in with LeBron on the shelf? That's next on First Things First. Big East Conference play gets underway tomorrow on FS1 as Xavier tips off against DePaul at 2 Eastern. Catch all the action on FS1 and the Fox Sports app. We are back here with Cris Broussard, and it's time now for Say What? Klay Thompson shooting a career low from the three-point line this season. He got a little spicy when asked about his shooting woes yesterday. Say what?
Steph also said that sometimes you say, we want to stay in his ear, meaning, I guess, that we want to keep communicating with you. Do you get a lot of people talking to you about your shot at all?
No. What is someone going to tell me about my jump shot that I can't fix at this point? Unless it's Reggie Miller or Ray Allen, I don't know who I'm supposed to listen to. Larry Bird? Steve Kerr, I'll listen to Steve. Steve shot 45%.
What,
Klay, Klay's like, who gonna tell me about how to shoot the basketball? Reggie Miller.
You just got to shoot yourself out of it. That's all you can do.
I like that he added his coach.
Steph could tell him.
Yeah, it's a very select company of living human beings.
Well, Ben Simmons could teach him a few things about it.
Yeah.
Klay, go ahead, Steve.
That's like you guys trying to help me if I'm going through some slump, dropping the ball. Hey, Nick, hey, Jenna.
Try squeezing it, see? Try squeezing it with your fingers.
Yeah, that's about,
Let it hit the numbers.
If you asked a dumb question, you should get a response like Klay.
Is there any chance in your mind this slump continues? I'm shocked it's gone on for 35 games. I think by the end of the year, he'll be right around 40% again.
Yeah, I think I don't know if he'll get that high, but I definitely expect him to come out of it. And by playoff time, he'll be the old Klay Thompson.
Have we seen a shooting slump from any of these stars on this team? Well, take Draymond out of it.
Well, no, it's just Clay. I mean, Draymond
not
is
this year,
prolonged and
this long,
bad.
no, right?
Draymond's in a 3-year shooting slump.
All Clay got to do is just go get his prescription changed, like my eyeglasses. Yeah, that's how they write it up. Eyeglasses and other stuff. Get him calibrated.
Time to talk the LeBron-less
don't know
Lakers.
nothing about that. Yeah, I don't know.
Eyeglasses. I had lasers.
No, prescription.
He ain't talking about eyeglasses.
Different
prescription for Clay.
Lakers taking on the Kings.
Sorry,
the actual King missing his first game with a groin injury, and the Lakers could have used him late. They blew a 15-point fourth-quarter lead. Lakers didn't trail at all the second half until the last shot. Bogdanović hits a three-pointer at the buzzer to beat the Lakers 117-116. Lakers have now lost 4 of their last 6 games, and it looks like LeBron could be out, quote, several games, according to reports. Cris Broussard, what do we learn about the Lakers without LeBron in this lineup?
Well, look, it was ugly at the end. You mentioned 15-point lead in the fourth quarter. It was actually a 15-point lead with 6.5 minutes left.
Yeah, 6:44.
Okay, now, I think a lot of that was not having LeBron. You're used to him being your closer and all that. And they've even lost some leads with LeBron being there. Rondo wasn't there either. We praised them, right? When we praised them for holding off Golden State without LeBron, Rondo was the main catalyst doing all that. So they were without their 2 main playmakers. And then even in the last minute and a half, Lonzo was out with the cramping. So all that was negative. That said, I got to be honest, watching the whole game, I was a little bit encouraged because typically when teams have LeBron on them, they fall apart when he's not there because they're used to him doing so many things. Cleveland was 4-23 without – this is a NBA Finals team. A championship team was 4-23 without LeBron.
But
they had Kyrie and Kevin Love.
They were unwatchable, though.
Without LeBron.
Yes, they were unwatchable.
Right. And this is what I want to get to. What I saw last night from the Lakers, they look like a different team without LeBron. Not a better team, obviously, but much different. I thought they were running different sets. There was more movement. And it showed me, especially with Kyle Kuzma hitting the big 3 with 41 seconds left, it showed me that these young guys, they have an identity outside of being LeBron supporting cast.
And what is it?
It's that they believe they can play well themselves.
Yeah,
like
they can score the basketball.
Kuzma and Hart are dogs.
Yes.
Right? And I think LeBron has a good supporting cast here is what I'm saying.
And listen, and Lonzo played really well in place of Rondo.
Really well. Almost a triple-double.
Played 37 minutes. And not the Lonzo triple-double we were used to last year, which was 11, 10, and 10. I mean, he had 20, 9, and 12. Like, the cramping at the end was a tough break for him, and maybe the game goes differently. Here's the part that I'm not encouraged by. I mean, Kyle Kuzma's the second best player on this team. It's no longer a question. See, I know you were on that corner early. Ingram is the guy that's supposed to be. He is not. I was reading the LA Times yesterday. I think he did an interview. I think it was Tanya Ganguly, someone with the LA Times, talking about how with Rondo out, with LeBron out, I know what I need to do. Well, he did it for half. Brandon Ingram had 19 points with 8 minutes left in the third quarter. Finished with 22. You know why? Because he always finishes somewhere between 14 and 22. I thought he might finally crack the 26-point mark for just the second time since high school, but he couldn't do it. And it was Ingram, by the way, that missed a free throw late that allowed that shot to be the game winner instead of the game-tying three, pardon me. And that's something systemic throughout the team. Certainly LeBron's a big part of that. They're the worst free throw shooting team in the league. So I understand why you're encouraged by some of it. But a big part of this team competing this year was supposed to be Brandon Ingram's development. And that I haven't seen. I have seen leaps from Kuzma, and I've seen flashes from Lonzo. I have not seen it from Ingram.
Yeah, I was pleased with what I saw out there to the young players, and I was pleased at Luke Walton. You could tell that he could coach. Their half-court sets were totally different than the sets they run with LeBron in, and that's all coaching. And the kids have a lot of confidence in Luke as a coach. So they were running their sets with a lot of confidence. So you could see their overall ball movement. They've been better defensively as we've gone on throughout the season, but without JaVale McGee, without Rondo. Rondo's the one who staved off the attack of Golden State the other night, or Christmas night. So without them, those three players, with LeBron being included, we don't expect the Lakers to be able to win many of these games. But from what I saw, very, very encouraged. Their free throw shooting, that's a team problem. They did miss a critical one last night that would have put the game potentially out of reach. So that's what I want to be able to watch going forward. I know they can improve on that as a team, but you're not going to win many games when you have 3 of your first 6 or 7 players out of the lineup.
The Lakers play a very specific type of ball when LeBron is in there. We talked about that all season. How different did it look last night without him? And is it very easy for him to come back in and pick up where they left off?
It was entirely different. I mean, like I said, I've said LeBron is a system. He is a system unto himself. Everywhere he's been, he's played essentially the same way, and everybody else, including the superstars, fits in around LeBron. Last night, you hit it on the head. Luke did a great job. They looked like a different team. I mean, they really did. Now, it's not a better team without LeBron. Look, what I'll say is this about LeBron and this team. This is the first time since 2007 when he's had house money. Like, nobody's expecting him to go deep with this team. If they get to the second round of the playoffs, he will get nothing but applause, except from our guys Skip and Rob Parker, right? But for the most part, they'll applaud him for that. So I think LeBron, and I know he's just answering questions, but from this point on, I wouldn't talk about recruiting guys. I wouldn't talk about getting elite superstars here anymore, because they're not getting Anthony Davis this year. If I'm New Orleans, there's no way I'm trading him this year.
Well, here's the thing. I don't mind him talking about recruiting free agents, but the Anthony Davis thing's different because it's a trade. So when he's talking about I'd love to have Anthony Davis, that I agree with you, because
that he shouldn't talk about that.
I don't mind him talking about recruiting free agents.
But why now? Because that's telling my guys, we need more.
When you look at the growth,
we need more.
When you look at the growth, I think LeBron was to address it, but it's time to move on.
Right.
Because these young players, their overall confidence, Ingram, if he's not improving the way you want, if he's not developing the way you want, he's not going to develop more under the scrutiny of this potential trade.
Well,
so you are right about that. It's time to concentrate on these young players, invest as much time and energy into them. If that trade is going to happen, it's going to happen regardless if he talks about it or not.
Well, and that's the reason I'm saying I wouldn't talk about Anthony Davis, is because the only way to get him is to trade some of these guys away. And that's the difference between talking about recruiting potential free agents you could add to the team and swapping out what would be 3 of the guys who started last night for Anthony Davis. Here's the one part, though, Chris, that I don't think they're going to be encouraged by. This would have been a great win. You had 5 guys starting last night, all drafted by the Lakers in the last 3 years. It was a homegrown starting lineup, all young guys on the road right after the best win this young team has ever had, and you could have built on that. They were in position to build on that, and they fell apart down the stretch. Like you mentioned, a 15-point lead with 6.5 minutes left, whittled to 1 with 2.5 minutes left. It went away like that. There are encouraging parts of it, and it counts in the standings now. Like at the end of the year, wherever the Lakers fall in the standings, it's going to be a game or 2 difference between 3, 4, 5, 6. And so that part of it's not encouraged.
They lost the same way with LeBron.
Right. They
lost the same way.
Yep.
Had the lead and couldn't finish at the beginning.
They've been building big leads all season, and then in the first half and then losing them, even with LeBron. So I just think this is a chance to really do something special with this team if Golden State falters.
Chris Broussard, thank you so much. Will you come back?
Yeah, of course.
Can I get that in writing? Just want to write that down a little bit. Coming up, can the Steelers salvage their season on Sunday? That's next on First Things First. Coming up on New Year's Eve, the Red Box Bowl kicks off between Oregon and Michigan State at 2:30 Eastern on Fox. Then flip over to FS1 as number 17 Utah battles number 22 Northwestern. It's the San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl at 6:30 Eastern, or catch it all on the Fox Sports app. Can't wait. Back here with Chris Canty, and it has been a pretty rocky season for the Steelers. You got your contract holdouts, you got your quarterback finger pointing, you got sloppy play, and despite all of that, they still have a chance to make it to the postseason. If Pittsburgh beats the Bengals at home on Sunday, and the Browns beat the Ravens, or less likely the Colts and the Titans tie, the Steelers, who've lost 4 of their last 5 games, are in the playoffs. Canny, how much does this season's story for the Steelers change if they do indeed make it to the postseason? Everything we just heard, does that all get erased?
I think it does, because you're talking about competing for a championship at that point. And so if you're one of the 12 teams that qualify for the tournament, I think it gets rid of all of the bad things that have gone on with this Pittsburgh Steelers team throughout this season. I mean, the distractions, the Le'Veon Bell holdout, Big Ben calling out his teammates and coaches. I mean, I think all of that kind of goes away and you lock in on this team trying to compete for a championship. But if they don't get in, CC, that's a big problem, because the Pittsburgh Steelers' expectations this season were to compete for a championship. You have a quarterback that's getting to the end of his prime in Ben Roethlisberger. You have arguably the best wide receiver in the game, Antonio Brown. And then, of course, coming into this year, we assumed that Le'Veon Bell would be a part of this team. Now, that hasn't been the case. Kevin Colbert played chicken with Lev Bell. And now when you're looking at where this team is at, and, of course, this team being so one-dimensional offensively, I think you have to question some of the things, some of the decisions that this organization made coming into this year, because you jeopardize a chance to take advantage of a quarterback that you know is capable of winning a Super Bowl when the requisite talent is around him.
I think the only way this Steelers season can be salvaged is not only getting into the playoffs, but winning a couple playoff games. I don't think they can salvage it just by getting in, even if they were to win their first playoff game. It'd be a home playoff game. They'd be facing, probably the Chargers would be the most likely how it falls. But I don't think that necessarily salvages the season. I think when you come in with the expectations the Steelers have, where you had made the playoffs 4 consecutive years, you had for 3 straight years advanced around further, went from 1 and done, 2 and done, 3 and done. Then last year, you look positioned to finally get to the Super Bowl. You went 13-3, and you don't win a playoff game. That the fact that they are in this position to where they need help, they don't even control their own destiny to get into the postseason after being 7-2-1. That the only way that we're going to look back on this Pittsburgh season and say, hey, that was a good year, is if they do something they haven't done really at all in this era, which is not only get to the AFC Championship game, but upset the Patriots along the way. Like, they're going to have to slay some dragons, to me, to offset what has been, by any metric, a disappointing year and an underachieving year.
But can I throw something out there? How about the fact that they are where they are despite not having Lev Bell all year? I mean, if you said, hey, they're going to have to get all the way back there without their stopped running back.
But they were 7-2-1 without Le'Veon Bell. It's not like he suffered a midseason injury and that's when it fell apart. Would they be better with him? Yes. Could they?
How many of those games in December could they have won?
Exactly.
With
they lost 4 in the last 5 games, and in all of those games, it's 7 points or less.
No,
I mean, you're talking about really close ball games, and the difference of having Le'Veon Bell versus James Conner or Samuels. I mean, that could have been the difference in those games.
I agree with that. Of course, Le'Veon Bell makes them better, and I think if Le'Veon Bell were there, they would have at least 1, if not 2 more wins. I get it. But even without Le'Veon Bell, you should be able to hold on to a 16-point lead at home against the Chargers. Even without Le'Veon Bell, you should be able to beat the Raiders. And so just those 2 games changed the narrative of this season. So I don't think winning on Sunday and getting some help from Baker Mayfield salvages the year, C.
If you ask the Pittsburgh Steelers on the eve of the 2018 season being over with, you have to be waiting on the Cleveland Browns to win at Baltimore, and you would still have to win, that's a disappointment for the season. The organization, the goals they set every year, it's a disappointment. It's a disappointment because we've had Mike Tomlin part of the conversation. Is he going to get fired or not? That's a disappointing season. Ben Roethlisberger, the way that he's played in the red zone, given the amount of experience, Super Bowl playoff experience that he's got, and he's still in his prime. It's been a disappointment. This window, A.B., L. Bell, Ben Roethlisberger, it's been a disappointment. They've gotten rid of a bunch of coaches. It's been a disappointment. So regardless of what the Pittsburgh Steelers do, which I don't believe they're going to get into the playoffs, we're going to be on the show on Monday talking about, oh, they missed the playoffs. It's a disappointing. Is it a disappointing season? Yes, it's a disappointing season. They got high expectations on the organization. The players have high expectations, and they did not get it done. Simple as that.
I assume it's something Chris and I both independently seized on that we saw yesterday, and I want your perspective on it. I assume the teams you were on at the end of the year voted on some type of team MVP. So the Steelers have done this every year in their history. Ben Roethlisberger, they voted on it yesterday, and Juju won it. Antonio had won 4 of the previous 7, I believe. Ben's won it once in his career. It was 09 a year they actually missed the playoffs. Does that say Ben's going to throw? He's leading the league in passing yards. He's going to throw for 5,000 yards, despite the red zone interceptions. I think most people would say he's been the best guy on the team. Does that surprise you at all that he didn't win it this year and that he's won it so little in his career? And does that tell you anything about where some of the noise surrounding him on shows like this, that it's a real thing in that locker room?
Well, here's the one thing. I've never been on a team that's voted for a team MVP in that situation. Like, it's never been about
that. That's not a thing every team does?
That's not a thing that every team does. No.
Okay.
I mean, so I think that's kind of bizarre. But the fact that Ben Roethlisberger has only won it once, I mean, I guess it could speak to how that locker room sees him as a leader on that team. We always look at the quarterback position as a natural leadership position, but Ben Roethlisberger hasn't been a traditional quarterback in that sense because he's always been outspoken. He's always been opinionated, and some of those things have rubbed teammates, coaches, and people in the organization the wrong way. So I don't think Ben Roethlisberger is that guy in terms of the leadership characteristics that you would want to see from your quarterback. But in terms of the play on the field, he's been outstanding this year. I mean, the interceptions, that's one thing, but I think that's in part because he's got to make up for the inconsistencies with the ground game and not having Le'Veon Bell and being more aggressive in the passing game.
All right, well, look, Pittsburgh is definitely going to have to go out there and win. They're also going to need to root for the Browns, which is very unfamiliar territory for them. So a lot has to happen for them to get in.
Well, and then, I mean, on the Browns game, just for a moment, Chris and I both said earlier we think the Browns can compete but expect the Ravens to win. Is that where you come out on this?
Yeah, I think the Browns will compete. Now, they're going to have some good fortune because I think the only way that they can beat the Baltimore Ravens on the road is being able to take away the football, and then being able to take care of the football, because the Baltimore Ravens, although they aren't great with takeaways on this little streak that they've gone on, winning 5 of the last 6, they've got 7 takeaways during that stretch.
Starting to finally take the ball.
Exactly, so they're starting to do that. So
that's going to be something you're going to watch, especially with their challenge as far as the passing game. We know that they like to run the ball. This is what I want to look for. If Baker Mayfield can throw for 200 more yards than Lamar Jackson, the Cleveland Browns will win this game. Now, last week I challenged Lamar, throw for over 200 yards. He threw for 201, right at that number. But if Baker Mayfield, so typically Lamar's going to throw for like 150. If Baker Mayfield can throw for 350, that's going to be the winning. So that's what I'll be watching during the game. Just a little tidbit for the fans out there, something to watch.
Chris Canty, thank you so much, as always. Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Chris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.